Have you ever woken up in the dead of night, feeling eyes on you, even though you're alone? That strange creeping sensation that something unseen is just outside your window, waiting, watching, whispering your name. Most people shrug it off as tricks of the mind, the quiet noises of an old house. But what if it's not? What if there's something out there? Something real that only comes when the world is asleep. Something that hunts in the darkness. Patient and silent, waiting for the moment. You look outside, waiting for the moment you answer. I didn't believe in those stories either, until the night I moved into the old house on the edge of town, where nothing ever seemed to happen until it did. I didn't believe in those stories either, until the night I moved into the old house on the edge of town, where nothing ever seemed to happen until it did. The house was one of those places you notice only when you're looking for something quiet, a break from the noise of the city. It sat there half hidden, behind overgrown bushes, its paint peeling and windows, dark like a secret waiting to be uncovered. The kind of house people drive past without a second glance, yet somehow it pulled me in. I thought it would be the perfect refuge to start fresh away from the chaos, the noise, the endless buzz of everyday life. At first, everything seemed normal. The quiet was a welcome change. The streets were empty after dark, except for the occasional flicker of a porch light or the distant bark of a dog. I unpacked my boxes, slowly arranging my new life around me, finding comfort in the small routines, making coffee in the morning, reading on the creaky old couch, watching the shadows dance against the walls as the sun dipped below the horizon. But the nights were different. On the first evening, as I settled into bed, I thought I heard a faint whisper. At first, I chalked it up to the wind, sneaking through the cracks in the window frame. But as the minutes ticked by, the whisper turned into a soft, almost musical murmur like someone calling out just beyond the glass. I froze, listening. The voice wasn't loud, but it was unmistakable. It called my name. I strained to see through the darkness, but the window showed only the black night, empty and still. I told myself it was my imagination. The house was old. The sounds of settling wood, the creaks and groans were normal. Still, there was something about the whisperer lore that felt both intimate and dangerous. Over the next few nights, the voice returned always after midnight, always soft, but persistent. I noticed shadows flickering in the corner of my eyes, always just out of full view, the quiet scrape of something moving outside. The sudden chill that would rush through the room no matter how tightly I wrapped myself in blankets. Yet every morning the sun would rise and everything would feel safe again. The whisper would vanish, replaced by the familiar hum of everyday life. I tried to distract myself, keeping busy during the day, convincing my mind to forget the eerie nights. But the house had a rhythm, a hidden heartbeat that seemed to beat louder as darkness fell. The feeling that I wasn't alone, that something waited patiently just beyond the window. One evening, while unpacking in the dim light, I found an old leather-bound book tucked away behind a loose floorboard. It was a diary worn and yellowed with age. The handwriting inside was shaky, hurried, filled with frantic notes about whispers, shadows, and a creature they called the rake. The writer described the creature as something that stalked at night, silent and relentless, whispering to lure its victims outside. A creature that no one could see clearly, but everyone feared. The last page chilled me to the bone. It ended with a warning, written in a hurried scrawl. Do not answer. Do not open the window. If you hear the whisper, do not listen. Below the warning in fresh ink was a name, my name. I slammed the diary shut, heart racing. Was it a cruel joke left behind by the previous tenant? Or was the story real? The thought sent a shiver down my spine. That night, I kept my curtains drawn tight and locked every door and window. But as the clock struck midnight, the whisper came again, soft and urgent, calling out my name through the darkness. I didn't answer. I didn't even look, because deep inside, I knew this was just the beginning. Days passed each night, bringing the same soft whispering at the stroke of midnight. It was like the house had a secret language, spoken only in shadows and silence. During the day, everything seemed normal: neighbors going about their routines, children playing in yards, the familiar hum of cars driving by. But as night fell, the calm fad crumbled. I found myself hesitating near the windows, glancing nervously at every flicker of movement outside. The whisper wasn't just a sound anymore. It was a presence. It settled into the quiet corners of the room, wrapping around me like a cold breath. Sometimes I caught glimpses of something at the edge of my vision, pale, thin, almost human, but impossibly wrong. It vanished when I turned to look directly, leaving only a lingering sense of dread. I started keeping a small recorder by my bed, hoping to catch evidence of the whispers. When I played it back in the daylight, there was only static and silence. But the night was different. The whisper's pull felt so real, like a hand reaching through the darkness, inviting me out. Despite my fear, curiosity gnawed at me. What was this creature? Why was it here? And what did it want? I began searching online, reading about similar stories, accounts of the rake, the midnight hunter stalking quiet towns, whispering to lonely souls. The creature was described as cruel and patient, waiting for its victims to respond before dragging them into the darkness. The rules were simple. Never answer the whisper, never open the window, never acknowledge its presence. But the hardest part was not knowing if the creature was real or if I was slowly losing my grip on reality. One evening, I sat by the window, the faint moonlight casting long shadows across the room. The whisper began again, softer this time, almost pleading. It called my name with an urgency that felt personal, as if it knew my deepest fears. I thought about opening the window just a crack to see if there was someone or something there. But the stories warned otherwise. The moment you answer, you lose control. So I stayed still, breathing slowly, fighting the urge to give in. That night, sleep escaped me. Every creak, every rustle in the dark felt amplified. I realized then that this was no ordinary haunting. This was a game of patience and terror played by something ancient, something beyond understanding. The house, the whisper, the creature, they were all connected, waiting for me to make a choice. And deep down, I wondered if I still had a choice at all. One night, just as the clock hit 3 a.m., I was jolted awake by a soft knock at the window. It was so faint, I almost thought I'd imagined it. But then it came again, 3 slow taps, rhythmic, deliberate. My heart pounded. I didn't want to look, but curiosity and fear tangled inside me. Carefully, I crept over to the window and peered through the peephole. Nothing. Just the dark, empty yard bathed in moonlight. No shadow, no figure, only the cold night air. I blinked, rubbed my eyes, convinced it was a trick of light or the wind. But the knocking continued, faint and steady. It wasn't wood on glass, but nails long, thin, scraping. That night, I barely slept. In the days that followed, strange things began to happen. Small objects I was certain I'd left on tables shifted positions. Footsteps echoed in empty hallways. Sometimes I heard faint breathing when no one was there. The whisper grew bolder, sometimes weaving through my thoughts during the day as if it was inside my head. I found the diary again and read deeper into the entries. The previous tenant wrote about the midnight hunt, how the creature only comes when the world is asleep, stalking its prey, whispering promises and threats. He described shadows moving just out of reach and the chilling feeling of being watched even in broad daylight. Most disturbingly, the diary mentioned that those who answered the whisper rarely returned. Those who did were never the same. The last note was smeared with what looked like tears or blood. It ended abruptly. It waits. It watches. Do not listen. I tried telling friends, but the words felt hollow even to me. How do you explain something that sounds like a nightmare made real? How do you convince someone you're not losing your mind? One night, as I sat alone in the living room, the whisper came again, clearer than ever. It wasn't just a voice anymore. It was a call, a soft, desperate plea that tugged at my heart. And then, out of the corner of my eye, I saw it. A pale figure, crouched just beyond the window, its eyes black and hollow fingers, long and clawed, pressed lightly against the glass. Its lips moved, whispering my name. I froze. My breath caught in my throat. I wanted to scream to run, but my body was rooted to the spot. It was watching me, waiting. From that night on, I couldn't ignore the signs anymore. The creature wasn't just a shadow or a whisper, it was real, patient, and relentless. Every time the clock struck midnight, the whisper would start growing louder, more insistent. It knew my name, my fears, and it used them like a blade, cutting deeper each time. I started noticing patterns. The whisper never came when I was fully awake or alert. It waited for the moments when I was most vulnerable, when my mind began to drift into sleep. If I tried to look directly at the window after the whisper began, the figure would vanish, but the sense of being hunted only intensified. The diary mentioned a rule: do not answer, do not open the window, do not speak its name aloud. It said, breaking the rules invited the creature in, turning the hunt into a nightmare with no escape. I tested the boundaries in a way. One night, almost against my will, I whispered its name into the darkness. The temperature in the room dropped suddenly, and a long guttural hiss echoed just outside the glass. The whisper turned into a harsh, angry voice, promising things I couldn't understand, but felt deeply wrong. My dreams became haunted by grotesque visions: pale limbs crawling under the door, glowing eyes watching from every corner. I woke soaked in sweat, heart pounding. Every shadow became a threat, every silence a trap. I started locking every window and door, drawing curtains tightly even during the day. But the creature didn't need a door or window to enter. It was already inside, in the whispering, in the shadows, in the silence that screamed louder than words. One night, desperate for answers, I searched deeper into the history of the house and the town. I found rumors of a tragedy decades ago: a child kept gagged and locked in a hidden room beneath the house, silenced and forgotten. Some said the child vanished without a trace. Others whispered that the creature itself had claimed it. It felt like the house was a magnet for something dark and old, feeding off fear and silence. I realized then the whisper wasn't just a lure. It was a tester game of rules I didn't fully understand, but that I was being forced to play. And with every night, the stakes grew higher. One night, the whisper came, as usual, calling my name softly from the window. But that night, something inside me broke. I wasn't going to hide anymore. Against every instinct, I moved toward the window, heart hammering in my chest. The air was icy cold, the room darker than before, shadows pooling in corners like ink. The whisper grew louder, almost pleading now. I slowly pulled back the curtain, my hands trembling. There it was, the Rocket's pale, emaciated body crouched just beyond the glass, its hollow eyes locked onto mine, fingers scraping against the window frame, with unnatural slow movements. It leaned closer, lips parting in a whisper that wasn't quite human. I wanted to scream, to slam the window shut, but my body betrayed me. I opened the window just a crack. The moment I did, a cold wind swept through the room, carrying with it a scent of decay and something ancient. The creature's face twisted into a smile, something cruel and knowing. Suddenly, the room plunged into darkness. I heard the scrape of nails on wood, the soft thud of something moving closer. I tried to pull back, but the window slammed shut behind me. The whispers became voices, chanting echoing from every corner of the house. And then I saw it etched into the ceiling above my bed, fresh and raw, carved with long thin scratches. Don't sleep when I'm awake. My heart stopped. The rules weren't just warnings. They were threats. I realized too late that some creatures don't just hunt the night, they own it. And once you answer, you might never see daylight again.